Hey, what's up, fam? If there's one thing that's very consistent, and even if it's a trope, even if it's very common, everyone's expecting it within a shonen battle manga, and just really in anime and manga in general, doesn't even have to be shonen, are power-up modes and forms. That's something that a lot of people can, even though they, like I said, it's a trope, people like it, it's fun, it's a really nice addition to a character, and it can really make or break the popularity of something if you have something that is too ridiculous or something that is just right on the nose and people are excited about it. I think a really obvious good example is recently in the Black Clover anime they had Asta be going to his anti-magic form, his black form, and just the way they animated it was really interesting, and it definitely stirred up a lot of hype within the series and probably pulled a lot of new viewers. And you have a big key moment like that, it's going to it's going to get a lot of attention, and that's probably going to happen in another obvious Shonen My Hero Academia at the end of the Yakuza arc when Deku gets that power up. It's one of those times where you've been waiting for it from the start, regardless of what's going on. You're wondering like when is that power up form coming. So we're going to talk about in this video what I really think makes a shonen power up. We're going to talk about specifically shonen, good or bad. And the examples I'm going to use, they aren't they aren't in place for the whole series. Keep that in mind. Whatever I use is in specifics to a character or power up, very detailed down to one spot, or if I have to use a large example to really kind of get the point across. Now, like I said, it's just because I say like, hey, this power up is good doesn't mean every power up in a series is bad. I think everyone also who reads and watches shonen knows there's going to be some parts in there that it's like this part doesn't make sense, or there's going to be some overwhelmingly good parts. You know how it is. It's just it comes with the territory. You're gonna get some malarkey in there somewhere. But we're just gonna talk about specifics. So we're gonna start out the obvious. We're gonna go positive. We're gonna go positive, and we're talking about good shonen power ups. So what I think is good ones in these examples are ones obtained and honed through the own character's skill, potentially showing what they're capable of, what they could be capable of, and something that even if they may have gotten it at a point where it wasn't entirely on them, but they later trained to get it. It was more of a brief showing of their potential, and not so much as, all right, you just got this new form, go forth and do stuff. It becomes down more to more of what's to come. And then here we have some obvious examples. You have Asta's black form, his anti-magic form. Though his first instance using it, he didn't activate it on his own. Someone else used it on him. And later on, when he's like, I need to get stronger, and he remembered it, and he's like, I have to figure out how to use that. That was a good part for his character in for the future, so he can look towards that and say, okay, this is a goalpost. I need to work towards that. I just have to figure out how to do it, figure out how to control it. You have Dragon Force for Natsu for Fairy Tail, something that was the first two times give almost not really given to him, kind of forcefully activated through means of consuming and integrating energy into his body, and then later getting it on his own means through anger, but eventually getting to the point where he trained to where he can use it on his own. So like I said, it's the same thing to where, okay, yeah, I know this thing exists. I have to work towards it. I've used it before. I know what it can do. I just have to figure out how to use it on my own. And then moving over to another example. This one's different because first two had more of characters training on something they already had. For One Piece, they have the fourth gear, which the original version, Bound Man, is more kind of set from assumingly Luffy's remembrance of being the Nightmare Luffy, and just having that big bulkier set, and then advancing his techniques through that. But this one specifically, I'd like to go over is Snake Man, the one that's actually about to get really big in the anime. It's tonight, I believe, soon. But though it's a really interesting one because I think that the way that he rooted out the idea for it, having the advanced hockey to where he could slightly see in the future, I thought that was a bad power up. I thought that didn't make sense. There were a lot of problems with that. But furthering from that is taking that skill that he obtained and integrating it towards something he already had, something he worked for, and something he, invented himself, like fourth gear, was a really good part on Luffy's character. I think it kind of pushed more back towards his character before it was the Bound Man. I thought the Bound Man kind of pushed away from what made him more of his own guy of this kind of improv fighting style, and it became more of like big punches. And it wasn't the same as third gear where I had this big drawback afterwards. I didn't really like Bound Man, but I think Snake Man really put Luffy back closer to his roots, and I thought it was really good. But at the same time, him getting it through combining something he obtained with something he already had. So instead of just saying, I'm going to pull a power up out of nowhere, it's going to be, I'm going to figure out something using what I already know and what I already have. So we're going to go with good power ups right now. Like I said, it's ones people work towards, they invented themselves. They took things that they had, the skills that they had already obtained, and they got down and saying, well, how can I integrate this into a new power up, into something new that I could use to further my progress? So that's going to be it for that one. So now we're going to talk actually about the bad power ups and what makes a bad power up. So a bad power up, I would say, is moreover stuff that's just handed to them and it's permanent and to the point where it can hurt the overall story. You have something like, a good example. I actually really like Bleach. I always enjoyed Bleach, but a problem with it is a lot of its power ups are very short lived. They don't have a lot of relevancy in the overall span of things. Like if you don't include the Hell Chapter movie, then Ichigo only went Vasto Lourdes mode like once in his fight with Ulquiorra. His full bring forms were very much forgotten about. They were instantly kind of thrown aside, and he got his old powers back, which were new powers, which were then immediately thrown away to get his true Shikai and Bankai. So he said so many of these forms and so many of these variations of his powers, they were almost immediately brushed aside for something new constantly. And I think that was an overall piece in Bleach that really hurt it. And then you can move over to something like Seven Deadly Sins, where within the same arc, Meliodas is getting multiple power ups. He's getting multiple forms and multiple additions to what he already had when things already existed within the series that he should have been able to use. And you had something like the one that right here, Assault Mode, and it's even in his flashback where he is fighting the Demon King, the Supreme Goddess. He's not using this apparent huge power up, and even after that, there's apparently a hidden power that he's had all along that he's never wanted to use, which is the point where he could just cut off the Demon King's arm like it's nothing, which it kind of hurts the overall story that he needed to do something to get stronger than him, and yet he apparently has had this power all along. It's definitely a case of just getting power ups and just permanently stabbed onto him, only to be replaced 10 minutes later by another power up. Like even just Meliodas in general. You had Meliodas jokingly, then you had serious Meliodas, and then he had a stick, and then he had a short sworded, and then he had his actual sword, and then he got his real power up back, and then he lost his part of his emotions and got even stronger, and then he got assault mode, and then he got the five commandments, then he's got 10 commandments, and then he's got his own original power up, and this is all within the span of. I think this all started around chapter 70 or 80, and they're only at like 290 something right now. So within what 4.5 years of the series, he's gotten like as much as most shonens get when they're twice to three times as long as Seven Deadly Sins. It's pretty crazy, and it really makes you brush everything else under the rug and just forget about it. And even whatever he's got now, it's probably going to be forgot about it as well because there's something better is going to come along. And that also is the case with something like Hitman Reborn. And Hitman Reborn, I think, really had the problem after the time travel arc, because after that point, every single time they got some new power up, they got something that they worked towards. Like anyone who's read or watched this series knows that there's a large portion like of the series is in this part where they're in the future, and the first, I want to say, a fourth to a third of it, they're training and they're trying to hone these new skills and powers. And, they spent this entire time working and getting it ready for these battles, and immediately following the next arc, all that was thrown away and completely destroyed, and they had to do something else, only for that to happen again the next arc. And it just goes to show, like, when you build up something like that, when you have this thing that these characters have worked so hard for, and you're going along with them on this journey, and especially when you emphasize the training of that, just to have it thrown away like immediately after that arc's over, completely trashed, it just kind of hurts the feel as a reader that you saw them go about this and now it's just gone, and not in a way that it's made to give emotional strain, something like a huge loss for a character. It's more like a, oh darn, now I need a new power, a new power up, or a new weapon. And it really, it really kind of sets this idea that, well, this is going to happen every arc, so why even get it invested in whatever's going on right now. And following that, we're going to get towards the next part, which are the in-between power-ups, things that are, I would say, are neither good or bad. You can take them with a grain of salt, and something like Toriko, I think, is a really good example of that, where you could have power-ups kind of just show up, but they can make sense. Something like when he had his I believe it was his self-cannibalism ability, where his body would start to kind of eat itself to get stronger and kind of preserve energy, give them more, which makes sense when you think about it. Or the way that the power-ups in their world work, you eat a certain food that really kind of correlates with your body, and that will advance it to become more powerful. Something like that, where they had this entire power set and the way that characters can get stronger and advance kind of laid out. But even though a character can be like, okay, 10 minutes ago, I was nothing to that guy, and then I came over here and I did this thing, and now I'm strong enough to fight him. But, it could be at a point where you're like, well, that's bullshit. But then when you remember how their power ups work and how exactly that entire universe is constructed, it makes a lot more sense. Or something like, per se, Ultra Instinct for Goku. Now, this was one that if it was during the arc itself, I would say it would have been a bad power up, and I say that because it came out of nowhere. It was a higher level of a power up that already came out of nowhere that he used to close the gap between him and characters. So the first one already was like, where did this come from? Why is this sudden power up out of just appeared and now he's way more powerful? And then it got another one in, I think, the time span of like 20 minutes within the clock of the series from the tournament. But you got to keep in mind is what happens afterwards, because similar to what I said about Asta and Natsu, where it was kind of a glimpse of what they had. You got that with Goku, because after the arc, he forgot about it. He forgot how the power worked. He forgot how to really achieve it, and it's something now he's going to have to work towards in the future. I kept this, though, in between, just from the fact that not only did it have absolutely no foreshadowing, no sense within the series at all, where something like Dragon Force is just like the way that Dragon Slayer magic works. You become dragon like, okay, well, this is just a further progress of it. Or with the power up from Asta, it was put upon him by someone else. Now, Goku's just kind of appeared. And that's kind of like where it was in that whole set of it just kind of happening. It was kind of a bad power up, but the way that they handled afterwards, I think, fixed it and put it in this kind of good spot in between. Now, when Goku eventually learns how to do it and is able to access go into and access it at will, it will move into the better category. But for now, it's kind of in between. And something also kind of like this last one with Naruto is you had a power up that was really given to him, but one that made sense. It wasn't entirely given to him. He had to go through this kind of like spiritual connection with Karama, the nine-tailed fox. There was a lot of kind of going over emotion wise with his past, and some stuff with his mom and everything, where it came down to having to cooperate with the nine-tailed fox. And there was, the gap between him and a lot of characters kind of was formed here. It brushed aside a much more interesting power-up, in my opinion, the one before this, where he had like the large chakra claw tails and he had all these fancy new Rasengans. I preferred that, but that when you do that, you brush aside the old one, it kind of sits in a bad category. But the way that this was in the story, and it made sense, it was set up for a while to where it definitely fits in a better spot. And that's kind of where in this area where in between, where it might have a bad start, but it fixes itself in various specifics and variables within the series. So that's going to be pretty well said for this video. It's like I said, it's these examples are not for the whole series. I can easily point out bad power-ups within, say, Black Clover, Fairy Tail, One Piece, or good power-ups within Bleach, Seven Deadly Sins, or Hitman Reborn, or you can find very good or very bad ones in Toriko, Dragon Ball, or Naruto. It just those were some good examples I thought I'd use. You know, it doesn't. I'm not insulting the series, them as a whole. I'm just kind of using some criticism or praise an example of what's going on within them to kind of give this layout of what I see as a good or bad shonen power up. And there's going to be more to come. I think out of all of these series, the only ones that are finished right now are Toriko and Hitman Reborn yet, Seven Deadly Sins, Black Clover, Fairy Tail, Dragon Ball, Naruto. Like all these things are still going. So we'll see more of this in the future. We'll see more good ones and more bad ones to come, and it's just going to be very much how they handle things within the series. So like I said, drop a comment below at what you think about these. What is your input on these? Can you think of any that were good or any that were bad or any in between that you would like to kind of put out here? And if I can get you to thumbs up and like the video, subscribe, check out my other videos, and hopefully I can get you to subscribe and see if there's anything that I review and talk about that you might enjoy. But otherwise, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks everyone that's already subscribed. Bye.